If you're tired of enthusiastically starting a new workout routine only to fall off the wagon a few weeks later, well, you're not alone. In fact, consistency is one of the number one challenges most people face in their fitness journey. Stick with me for the next few minutes and I'm going to show you 4 simple strategies I've used with hundreds of my clients to solve the consistency challenge once and for all. This will allow you to redefine the role exercise plays in your life, get consistent with exercise no matter how you feel, and approach fitness in a way that allows you to actually maintain what you go on to achieve. If you're new here, my name is Scott Laidler. I've worked as a personal trainer for 14 years, over which time I've worked in person with everyone from European royalty to Oscar-winning actors, and my online personal training service has helped more than 10,000 people in 54 countries. My focus is to help my clients make health and fitness a priority and achieve lasting fitness results. When I first started working with clients, I thought that fitness challenges were going to be solved at the level of exercise knowledge. Basically, I believed that if guesswork could be solved and everyone knew what exercises to do, they'd be all set. Probably because solving my own fitness frustrations and then showing them to others was really the reason I became a trainer in the first place. Over time, I realized that the real challenge isn't necessarily in knowing what to do, it's with sticking with it consistently. Because the truth is, in the internet age, most people have access to great workout information anyway, but without consistency, even the best workout plan won't get you results. So think about that. You could have the most perfect workout plan, but unless you actually follow it, it's of no utility to you. It's not going to change your body or your fitness levels one bit. Yet so many of us seek answers in new training regimes, new diet programs, supplements, or influencer-inspired trends. But these are all details. They are nuances to be added to an existing consistent exercise framework. So what does this mean for you and your results? Well, as counterintuitive as it sounds, you'll never really benefit from optimizing a training program unless you can see any training program through to the point that it no longer works for you. And the reason it no longer works for you is because you'd be so used to it that it's no longer asking anything new of the body. That is when you're primed for optimization because you can introduce contrast and force adaptation over time. But if you're repeatedly starting and stopping, then essentially almost anything is going to work for you technically, because your exercise habits have been so inconsistent that everything is novel enough to force that same change. I actually had a client join my program who'd mentioned that they'd joined me because they'd read one of my articles about building a personalized workout plan. And they felt that what they'd had before was cookie cutter. But under closer inspection, they'd actually never made it to the 3-week mark of any of their programs. So in defense of the other coaches, I told them respectfully that each time they were joining a program as a ranked beginner, and the coach was likely just seeking not to overwhelm them with undue and unnecessary complexity when the real challenge at hand repeatedly was execution. Many people suffer from this same trap. It's shiny object syndrome, when in 99% of cases, the real progress is to be made with persistent implementation of the fundamentals. This brings us to another big mindset shift in fitness, and it can be a difficult one to take. And that is that fitness and conditioning is always going to be a moving target. So once you've started, to stand any chance of keeping what you've achieved, you've got to keep going. Now, you don't have to become obsessed and live in the gym, but you will have to align with how the human body works and really the laws of nature that are working on it. And I'm not getting esoteric, it's just a reflection that we live in a world where entropy exists. And that means that over time, all systems tend towards decline. Exercise is our way of slowing or reversing that decline. Whilst it would be nice to think that fitness works like some other areas of life, like a computer game, for example, where you can reach a certain level or skill set in the game and you can put it down and reprise that same character later, or a classic car where you could buy it, store it away, keep it in immaculate condition and actually benefit from its appreciation because it's maintained its condition later. We humans don't really work like that. Actually, we tend to work in the opposite way, in what's known as an anti-fragile system, where we get stronger precisely because we've been exposed to well-calibrated stress. It's called hormesis, and it's exactly why exercise, hot and cold exposure, and fasting can all be good for you. They're what's known as hormetic stressors, so by encountering them, you grow stronger. This is just how fitness works, and there's no way around it. I press that point because the difference is really like living in 2 different realities. Now, in the first, you can simply put a pin in your fitness regime and expect to pick it back up where you left off. And that's the assumption that many of us start out with. But the actual base reality dictates that you're going to have to keep signaling to the body and that you still require your physical conditioning in order to keep it. And you do that through consistent exercise. Now, I understand that could feel intimidating or even demotivating because it feels like a lifelong sentence. But unless you know that, and unless you know the rules of the game, you're not really in a position to win it. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is that after achieving excellent results on a fitness program, they'll say something like, I'm really happy with my results, but I think I'll take summer off because I'm going to be traveling a lot and I won't have time to exercise. And it's a really well-intentioned decision. They want to draw a line under their fitness achievement and put an end to a fitness program and then just pick things up later. But sadly, this is the cause of a lot of frustration owing to that same concept of entropy, or what we might call in fitness deconditioning. So by the end of that summer, much of what has been achieved has been lost due to inactivity. Now, as a quick aside, it can be easy to view exercise merely as a tool for changing weight or composition, which can lead to a bit of a two-dimensional approach, thinking that when your aesthetic fitness results have been achieved, then how you feel when you achieve them will also be sustained. You've got to think of exercise as more of an iceberg with all sorts of hidden benefits lurking under the surface that are rarely missed until they're gone. There are the obvious ones like cardiovascular health benefits, improvements to circulation, preventing muscle atrophy and bone density loss, improved immune function, better sleep, and better blood sugar regulation. But many fail to factor in that when you exercise on a regular basis, you've actually built yourself a self-perpetuating positive loop. Exercise has been shown to lower the occurrences of feelings of depression and anxiety, and it releases endorphins, which can help boost mood and feelings of overall well-being. It's also a very underrated vehicle for building positive self-esteem. You see, self-esteem isn't really built at the end result. It's not the six-pack abs or the muscle gain or the big milestones in life. It's really about keeping the appointments you set with yourself and learning that when you say you'll do something, you mean it. And that's how you earn a reputation in your own mind over time. So by stopping exercise completely, not only do you start the clock on your inevitable decline of your conditioning at least, you're also kicking away all of the scaffolding that was helping you feel good. And in tough times, sometimes whether you knew it or not, it'll have been exercise and an active lifestyle that keeps your head above water. Couple that with the fact that many people pair exercise and healthy eating both positively and negatively, meaning that all too often, all of the healthy eating habits and benefits that were established with exercise also go away when you take that prolonged break. In my experience as a personal trainer, one of the biggest consistently related challenges comes when you go through a particularly difficult time in life, which is often met by the decision to give up on your exercise regime in response. And it can sound logical. After all, you'll be going through a lot and you'll have a lot going on. But it's only because you still value exercise for its surface level benefits that you're really looking at it too literally. So you're looking at it in a way where you're either on a training program or not, and getting fitness is either priority right now or it's not. And when it's not, because of this challenging time, you just drop it. So the decision basically amounts to saying, I'm going through a really tough time. It's going to be very stressful. I'm going to face negative circumstances outside of my control for an unpredictable amount of time. So I think the best response is going to be to completely remove all of the habits, healthy eating, and psychological coping mechanisms I'd established that were helping me manage my stress, because I'm going to feel unhappy for a while. So you soon find yourself not only losing your physical conditioning, but also alone without all of the previous infrastructure that was keeping you afloat. It's not only a bad decision, it's the absolute worst decision you could make at the time when you needed exercise and healthy eating the most. So it's no wonder dark times tend to spiral, and when you finally do emerge from them, you find yourself back at square one from a health and fitness standpoint. All of this hopefully drives home not only the importance of getting consistent with exercise, but that to achieve it, it's going to take a fundamental shift in how you perceive the role of exercise in your life. You'll have to make a change philosophically, strategically, and tactically if we're going to make this stick. No longer can exercise be something you either do or don't do for a time. You can't look at it as being on a training program or not. And you can't really even look at it as having a fitness goal or not. It's got to become a permanent fixture regardless of all of that. Ultimately, it has to become a part of who you are. Think of it like a volume dial on a stereo. You can lean into it and turn it up, or lean out and turn it back down. But as soon as you press a mute button, that's when you're going to take all of the heavy losses as far as health and fitness. But ultimately, these are all appeals to logic, and it's emotions that drive many of our decisions, particularly around exercise and healthy eating. But following your emotions as your guiding star isn't going to end well, at least not through the context of fitness, because emotions are unreliable and fleeting. Now, that isn't to discount them or to deny your lived experience or even to encourage you to numb how you feel. Simply that in the context of consistent exercise, you'll need to build yourself a system that's going to overrule your feelings when it's clear that they aren't going to serve you. So let's look at how we can go from a lack of consistency to getting consistent with exercise. Here are 4 simple strategies you can use. You've probably heard so much by now about finding a why that it almost feels trite. But honing in on what really drives you in the context of fitness is crucial because there's just no way you're going to feel motivated to exercise every day. It's not a realistic proposition for anyone. Plus, not everyone actually even likes exercise all that much, but that doesn't make it any less necessary for those individuals. Relying on feeling motivated to exercise isn't going to work because your ability to stay consistent is going to rely on your ability to exercise on the specific day that you least want to do it. That's how you'll know you're in control. There's a pretty quick way to establish a why, and it will take a few minutes of honest reflection. When you think about your fitness goals, let's say you are doing a gym induction, you might write down, I want to lose 5 pounds, or I want to gain some muscle. I want to improve my lower back mobility. Now, these are great, but they're pretty safe. They're surface level goals. They aren't going to stand up under the pressure of your toughest moments. You need to sit and think and even feel through what it's going to mean for you to achieve your goals versus falling short of them. And this is going to reveal more powerful statements like, I want to regain my self-confidence, or I want to feel safe walking around at night and capable of protecting my family because I'm fit and strong, or I don't want to ache for 3 days every time I go for a hike anymore. Or if you're like many of those I've worked with, perhaps it'll be as simple as saying, I just want to feel like myself again. Now, whatever it is for you, I really do encourage you to think about life on either side of what you want to achieve right now and all of the implications for your life moving forward. What would you have access to and for how long? What could be taken away? And what would it mean for the relationship you have with yourself and those around you? Now, I know it sounds strange, but don't just think these scenarios through. Feel them through too. Literally aim to anchor how your body feels as you run through these scenarios, positive and negative, so that you can recall these same feelings later when you need to feel driven, not motivated. Then commit it to paper and revisit it often. This way, when it's cold, when it's raining, when the gym seems far away, when you've had a bad day and you simply would rather do anything than exercise, these feelings can serve you and they'll help you follow through on your intentions to take action and stay consistent. The second thing you can do is to design for system consistency and become process oriented, not goal oriented. Sometimes pursuing a very specific fitness goal isn't the best way to go about getting consistent with exercise. In fact, if I wanted to bet on a stranger's success, I would encourage them not to follow a fitness goal, but to make the process of exercise the goal, not a specific fitness outcome, for 2 reasons. Firstly, it's the wrong feedback loop, or at least it could be, because if you're inexperienced with exercise, you may initially have a very low resolution view of what's possible and in what kind of timeframes, and perceive steady results or a lack of perfection as demotivating. Now, this is extremely common and alone can be the cause of a lot of inconsistency with exercise. So focusing on the process allows you to create a shorter positive feedback loop. You'll be able to consider each day a success as long as you consider it net positive, i.e. it took you further toward your goal than away from it. Nothing more and nothing less. That is ultimately the definition of success in this context, because on a long enough timeline with that system in place, you will see results. This helps you create references for success on a daily basis. Focusing on aggregate progress in this way helps you build momentum and will be intrinsically motivating for you, even if you didn't really like exercise in the beginning. There's something very rewarding about having multiple references for success on a daily basis, and you'll soon have very positive momentum. The second reason a specific fitness goal might not be the best way to approach getting consistent with exercise is because it gives you a very specific habit set and toolkit, and it may not be conducive to a broader, well-rounded, consistent exercise practice over time. A good example of this might be that you have a weight loss goal and you decide that trying to run a marathon would be a great way to achieve this. Now, whilst running a marathon is a fantastic goal, if your real goal is to lose weight, and that's where all of the emotive drivers are, you really want to lose weight and keep it off, you'd be better not to approach it through the vehicle of a distance running goal, because by definition, the training for a marathon is going to require a very high exercise output, perhaps at peak, meaning you'll be running 20 miles in a single sitting and maybe stacking 30 to 50 or even 60 miles in a week. just in preparation for the event itself, believe me, you'll have to fuel that, and the calories are going to have to be coming in to get you to perform in that exercise and recover it. So to try to do both at the same time, you'd either be overclocking your calorie deficit, which would make you feel awful, or underfueling your runs, which would also make you feel awful. So even if it technically worked on paper and you both lost weight and completed your marathon, the weeks and months of preparation would have been quite an unpleasant experience. And at the end, the day after the race, you'd still be left with a highly specific habit set and skill set around exercise and food that was really out of context as soon as the race was finished. It would be inappropriate for your long-term intention to be at a healthy weight, and your results would probably be quite short-lived. It's a bit like investing in a very expensive set of tools to cut diamonds, but not having a basic enough toolbox in the house to hang a painting. You'd be better off establishing an easy to maintain, well-rounded fitness regime that included some strength training, some short bursts of higher intensity cardio, some mobility work, and just seek to build activity into your overall lifestyle. That way, once you establish the weight you'd like to be at, and you know that you can maintain it because your lifestyle supports it, you can bolt onto that a specific marathon training goal. Once you've achieved the marathon, you can then come back to your lifestyle that helps you stay at your healthy weight. Plus, you'll have been able to fuel the marathon training appropriately. The good news is that if you're coming from a history of inconsistency, there will be so much low-hanging fruit on the table that if you're able to nail consistency, you may be one of the lucky ones that at the moment might just have a full portfolio of fitness benefits on the table to achieve at once, like gaining muscle, losing fat, getting more mobile and fitter, all from a pretty basic training program that isn't going to take your life or overtake your life to perform. Of course, as you get more conditioned, you'll need to get a little bit more specific and nuanced and advanced with training. And that's exactly the kind of problem that we hope to face once we get consistent enough to earn it. If you can do all of this, you'll have a system that you can maintain year round. And if anything goes wrong or you face a setback, there would be no need to fall into the all or nothing trap and let it deter you, because you aren't pursuing some far-flung end outcome like a large weight loss goal or running a marathon race some months away. You'll simply just need to fall back on your framework and execute a net positive day at the very next opportunity you can, and you'll be straight back into your momentum. To be clear, consistent exercise isn't about rigidity. It's important to understand that there are times when an intuitive approach is necessary. For example, many women may find that during the luteal phase of their menstrual cycle, lighter exercise would be more beneficial and just feel a lot more comfortable. And for all of us, there are going to be days when you're just so exhausted, maybe even from exercise itself, that the best way to contribute to your overall progress would be to take a rest day. But here's the key. These decisions should be made in the context of the bigger picture, supported by eating well, staying hydrated, and managing stress. Mastering this balance takes time, and it's about learning when to listen to your body's signals and when to push through temporary resistance and discomfort. Sometimes this is where working with a personal trainer can really help, because it allows you to fast track your progress by outsourcing some of the decisions that will take time to become authentic with. For instance, knowing the difference between taking a day off because your body genuinely needs it versus rationalizing away how you feel and just not wanting to train takes wisdom and cultivating a strong mind-body connection that, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, is going to take time to develop. The next thing you can do is a little bit more tactical, which is to prepare an if this then that strategy, which allows you to create contingencies for when things don't quite go as planned. This is massively supported by our new focus on net positive rather than perfect days, which allows you to stay flexible and adaptable. How this works is that you essentially build a backup plan for anything that could go wrong, which still allows you to take some positive action that will aggregate towards a net positive day. So let's take the example of traveling to an unfamiliar city for a work trip. If the gym you had planned to train in became unavailable, then is there a second gym that sells day passes, for example? Or if the hotel gym that you're staying at has different equipment to that in your training program, can there be a different exercise selection that can be switched to keep the protocol and just use different exercises or equipment, but to achieve the same end? It shouldn't stop the workout taking place. Or let's say that things got busy and you couldn't find the normal hour you have for your training session, then what would be the best use of the 15 minutes you do have? As a quick aside, many studies have found that both strength training and HIIT work can be effective in as little as 10 to 20 minutes, so time is rarely a justified reason for a lack of results. If you missed all opportunities to work out on a given day, then could you do a light stretch sequence before bed? Or if things got pretty hectic and you couldn't plan your meals, then could you default to first principles and eat purely for nutrient value, not numbers? Even in the light of significant setbacks, there may still be a strategy you can put around things to keep you active. For example, let's say you twisted your ankle, unfortunately coming back from that trip, carrying a suitcase up some stairs, then maybe you could wait for the acute phase to pass and retool your workouts so that you could still do seated and lying exercise rather than considering yourself injured and allowing exercise to go to nil because of an isolated lower limb injury. The idea is always to have a contingency plan and to get into the practice of searching for a way that, despite the circumstances, some salvageable action can still be taken. I learned this way of thinking applied to more than just fitness when I started my podcast, as I quickly found out the hard way that no one camera, microphone, memory card, or hard drive can ever really be relied on. There has to be some level of redundancy to everything you rely on, ideally in life, and that is the same in fitness. So I also apply it to things like going for hikes and travel. This way you solve for rationalizing away a lack of action due to circumstances or setbacks way ahead of time. So you can't be caught off guard or surprised because you've literally already planned out that anything that could go wrong is still going to have some solution and you've built a way around it. Finally, and this one is more of a philosophical adjustment, which is to embrace the fact that staying consistent isn't going to be easy or aligned with your feelings at all times. It's going to take the deliberate cultivation of resilience and a detachment from your feelings, at least as far as you've been allowing them to drive decisions that you know take you away from your highest held ideals. So decide once, now, that moving forward, you're going to be consistent with exercise, not as a goal, a resolution, or as part of starting a new training program, but as part of a new identity. And you don't have to tell anyone about it because they'll know and they'll talk to you about it when they see your actions and your behaviors change. Ultimately, once exercise has legitimately become a part of who you are, you simply won't experience challenges with consistency anymore because it would be harder not to exercise than it would be to keep going. Or rather, your habits, lifestyle, momentum, strategy, tactics, and deeply held motivators and your relationship with who you know you could be will finally all be pulling in the same direction.